Okay, so get ready for a deep dive into
Hmm.
a partnership that's been making
Hmm.
waves. We're talking ancient Tibetan culture
Wow.
and this
Yeah.
cutting-edge AI organization called TATANKA.
Interesting.
You sent us a bunch of articles,
Yeah.
even a short story from their website, and it looks like they're
Mm-hmm.
teaming up
Sure.
to tackle seriously big issues.
What's fascinating is how they're not just looking at the tech side of things, they're weaving
Okay?
Tibetan Buddhist philosophies like
Uh-huh.
mindfulness and compassion into the very fabric of how they want to
Right.
develop and use AI.
Yeah. So not just building smarter AI,
It's a pretty radical approach.
although maybe kinder AI.
Yeah.
The article even uses the term AI humanism,
Uh-huh.
which I admit I'm a little fuzzy on.
Right, so AI humanism is this idea that AI should be developed and used to enhance our humanity, not replace it.
Yeah.
Think about how Tibetan Buddhism emphasizes things like empathy and understanding.
Right? Those are qualities we could actually program into algorithms.
So instead of AI that just crunches numbers,
Exactly.
you could have AI that actually helps us become more humane.
Think of it like this. Let's say you're building an AI for conflict resolution.
Okay.
Instead of just focusing on finding the most logically efficient solution, you could also incorporate principles of nonviolence and understanding, drawing from
Right.
Tibetan Buddhist teachings
Yeah.
on conflict resolution.
Okay.
The article specifically mentioned how TATANKA wants to explore this in helping to address international disputes and promote global peace.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not just about what AI can do, but about what it can be.
Exactly.
The article gives this example of AI-powered meditation apps designed to guide users through mindfulness practices based on Tibetan techniques. Imagine instead of just tracking your heart rate,
Right.
the AI could actually respond to your emotional state, offering personalized guidance based on Buddhist principles.
That's the idea.
Oh.
That's wild. But are we talking about robots leading meditation retreats soon?
Well, not quite. The articles mention using humanoid robots in education settings, but the focus seems to be on assisting,
Gotcha.
not replacing human teachers.
Huh.
One article quotes a TATANKA rep saying, "We believe technology should complement and enhance human capabilities, not supplant them."
Okay, so no robot gurus yet.
Yeah.
But the articles also touch on another fascinating aspect of
Yeah.
Tibetan culture,
Yeah.
their approach to gender equality.
Uh-huh.
And TATANKA is known for its commitment to diversity and inclusion, so it seems like a natural fit.
What's intriguing here is that Tibetan Buddhism has historically recognized the spiritual power of women.
Okay.
The articles highlight how there have been many female spiritual leaders and teachers within Tibetan Buddhism,
Interesting.
a stark contrast to many other major religions.
Yeah.
TATANKA wants to work with Tibetan communities to further amplify
Okay.
female voices both within Tibet and globally.
So they're not just talking about getting more women into tech, but about actually learning from Tibet's model of female empowerment.
Exactly. One article quotes a Tibetan activist saying, "Feminism isn't about copying Western models.
Right.
It's about recognizing the power and wisdom that women have always held in our culture."
Okay, so we've got AI that's potentially kinder,
Right.
more humane, and even feminist.
Yeah.
But let's be real, Tibet faces some serious challenges, especially when it comes to climate change.
Definitely.
Those mountains are feeling the heat.
And that's a key area where TATANKA's expertise could be really impactful.
Mm-hmm.
Tibet's being called the water tower of Asia for a reason. It's the source of so many major rivers.
Right.
But climate change is threatening glaciers and water resources.
Yeah.
The articles talk about using AI to monitor these environmental changes in real time.
Yeah.
Imagine AI analyzing satellite data to predict glacial melt or track water usage patterns, giving us the information we need to develop sustainable solutions.
So we're talking AI that's not just helping us be better people, but actually helping us save the planet.
That's the goal.
Wow.
And they're not just thinking about damage control.
Okay.
TATANKA is also known for its work in renewable energy.
Right.
The article suggests they want to help Tibet become a model for sustainable living,
Okay.
using AI to design energy-efficient buildings, optimize resource management,
Right.
and maybe even create entire cities
Why?
powered by renewable energy.
Wow, that's a huge undertaking.
It is.
But how does all of this fit in with preserving Tibetan culture?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking about bringing some serious tech into a very traditional society.
And that's a tension the articles acknowledge.
Yeah.
The big question is, can they embrace technology without losing their cultural identity?
Okay, so where does the AI come into all of this?
Well, they're looking at it from both sides.
Okay.
On the one hand, AI can actually help preserve
Yeah.
Tibetan culture. They're talking about creating digital archives of ancient art, scriptures,
Yeah.
and even oral histories.
Okay.
Think about using AI to translate Tibetan languages,
Right.
making those texts accessible to the whole world.
It's like creating a digital time capsule of Tibetan knowledge.
Exactly.
But they're also looking at how AI can support Tibetan communities today.
Right.
The articles discuss AI-assisted healthcare systems, adapted to traditional Tibetan medicine practices, educational platforms that teach Tibetan language and culture,
Yes.
and even AI tools to help manage sustainable agriculture in the region.
It's right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, it all sounds a bit utopian.
Yeah.
I mean, can AI really solve all these problems and bridge the gap between ancient traditions and the modern world?
Well, that's where the short story you sent comes in.
Okay.
It's actually a fictional account of a young Tibetan woman named 𝗧𝗔𝗧𝗔𝗧𝗔𝗡
Oh, yeah.
who sets up a school
Yeah, I read that one.
called the Skylamp Initiative, blending traditional teachings
Okay.
with AI-powered learning.
And wasn't there some pushback from people who thought the AI was a threat to their culture?
Absolutely, and that's a really important point.
Right.
The story explores those tensions and anxieties head-on. I think it's meant to be a thought experiment,
Okay.
a glimpse into the potential challenges and opportunities of this partnership,
Yeah.
even if it is fictional.
It definitely raised some questions for me. Like, can AI ever really understand something as complex and nuanced as Tibetan culture?
That's a big one.
And even if it can, is it right to use AI in that way?
Yeah.
Is there a risk of losing something essential in the process of digitizing
Right.
and analyzing tradition?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Maybe enough for a whole other deep dive. But I'm curious,
Right.
what else did the articles highlight? We've covered some major points,
Right.
but I feel like there's still more to explore.
You're right. We've only just scratched the surface. The articles also mention a bunch of other fascinating ideas, things like using AI to support Tibetan refugees,
Yes.
promoting traditional Tibetan medicine on a global scale,
Right.
and even incorporating Tibetan principles into global governance systems. It's a pretty bold vision.
It is. Okay.
Okay, so we got Keys promoting AI, feminist AI,
Yeah.
planet-saving AI. Is there anything AI can't do,
Right.
according to these articles?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? They paint a pretty optimistic picture,
Yeah.
but there are bound to be challenges and complexities we haven't even touched on yet.
Okay, so before we get too carried away with all this AI optimism, let's dive into some of those potential downsides.
Right.
Because even with the best intentions, there's always a chance things could go wrong.
Right. And it's important to look at those potential pitfalls,
Right.
not to be negative, but to be realistic. We need to understand both the opportunities and the challenges if we want to make informed judgments about this partnership.
I'm with you.
So what are some of the red flags we should be watching out for?
Well, one of the first things that jumps out is the whole issue of cultural appropriation. I mean, how do we ensure that this collaboration truly benefits Tibetan communities
Right.
and doesn't just become another way for outsiders to exploit their culture
That's a great point.
for profit or gain?
And with AI, there's always the potential for misuse.
Exactly.
How do we ensure that these same tools aren't used for surveillance or control, especially in a region with a history of human rights concerns?
Exactly. And then there's the whole issue of the digital divide. Not everyone in Tibet, let
Yeah.
alone the world,
Right.
has access to technology.
Yeah.
How do we ensure that these AI initiatives don't further marginalize those who are already disadvantaged?
And let's not forget that AI is still a relatively young field.
Absolutely.
What happens if these initiatives become obsolete?
Or even harmful down the line?
Right.
How do we build in safeguards and adaptability?
These are all crucial questions, and ones that we'll need to keep in mind as we delve deeper
Okay.
into the specifics of TATANKA's plans.
Okay, so it sounds like we've got a lot more to unpack here.
Yeah.
But before we dive into those potential challenges, let's take a closer look at the 12 key areas where TATANKA sees this partnership making a real difference.
Okay.
Because if they're going to tackle all these issues, they better have a solid plan. Okay, so the articles mention 12 key areas where this TATANKA-Tibet partnership aims to make a difference. And honestly, the list is pretty diverse.
Yeah.
We're talking global peace, preserving traditional medicine, sustainable development.
It is.
It's a lot to take in.
But what's interesting is how they tie each of these areas back to core Tibetan Buddhist values.
Yeah.
For example, using AI to monitor glaciers and develop renewable energy, that's not just a tech solution. It's about aligning with the Buddhist principle of respecting all forms of life.
So it's like they're saying, even with AI, our actions should be rooted in a deeper understanding of interconnectedness. I'm curious, what are some concrete examples of how they plan to put these ideas into action?
Well, take the preservation of Tibetan art, scriptures, and oral histories.
Right.
They're talking about using AI to create a massive, searchable digital library, almost like a virtual museum.
Yeah.
Anyone in the world could access.
Wow.
You could explore ancient Tibetan paintings, read translated texts, even listen to recordings of traditional stories and songs.
Wow, it's like bringing Tibetan culture to life online. But wouldn't something be lost in that translation? I mean, can digital really capture the essence of something so ancient and spiritual?
That's a valid question, and one the articles acknowledge. They're not saying it's a perfect solution. But it's a way to make these treasures accessible to a far wider audience, including Tibetans in diaspora who might not have easy access to their cultural heritage.
Okay, so it's about preserving and sharing knowledge, even if it's not a one-to-one replacement for the real thing. What about education?
Right.
I remember the articles mentioned using AI there as well.
Right. And this is where it gets really interesting. They're not just talking about using AI to teach about Tibetan culture, but to actually teach in Tibetan.
Interesting.
Imagine AI-powered language learning platforms, personalized tutors that adapt to each student's pace and learning style. They could even create immersive virtual reality experiences that let you practice speaking Tibetan in a simulated environment.
Like Duolingo on steroids. But wouldn't that require a ton of data and resources to develop? I mean, Tibetan languages aren't exactly mainstream.
That's true, but remember, TATANKA has serious tech muscle. Plus, the articles talk about collaborating with Tibetan linguists and educators to ensure accuracy and authenticity. It's not just about throwing algorithms at the problem. It's about using technology in a way that respects and supports Tibetan expertise.
Okay, so we've got digital libraries, personalized tutors, virtual reality language lessons. What else is on their AI agenda?
Healthcare is a big one. The articles talk about using AI to analyze ancient Tibetan medical texts, identifying medicinal plants, maybe even creating personalized treatment plans based on traditional principles.
So it's not about replacing traditional healers, but more like giving them powerful new tools to enhance their practice.
Exactly. One of the articles even mentioned the possibility of developing AI-assisted diagnostic tools that community health workers in remote areas could use. Imagine a portable device that could analyze symptoms, cross-reference them with a Tibetan medical knowledge, and suggest potential treatments. It could be revolutionary for areas with limited access to doctors.
That's incredible. But I also imagine there might be some resistance to incorporating AI into something as deeply rooted in tradition
absolutely.
as Tibetan medicine.
And that's a theme that comes up throughout the articles. The need to find a balance between preserving tradition and embracing innovation. It's not about forcing technology on people. It's about finding ways to use it to enhance and support what's already there.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about the Skylamp Initiative, the educational center from that short story. It was a pretty compelling glimpse into what this partnership could look like on the ground. What stood out to you about it?
Well, I thought it was fascinating how the story explored the potential for AI to not just teach factual information, but also things like critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and even ethical decision-making. The protagonist, 𝗧𝗔𝗧𝗔𝗡, was really passionate about using AI to help students develop those qualities alongside their academic skills.
And I thought the whole idea of having AI humanoids as teaching assistants was pretty wild. Though I did wonder if that might create some anxieties for people who aren't used to interacting with such advanced technology.
And the story didn't shy away from those concerns. It showed how some people were initially skeptical, even afraid of the AI. But it also showed how, over time, many came to see it as a valuable tool, not a threat. I think that's an important message, especially when we're talking about introducing AI into a culture as rich and complex as Tibet's.
It also made me think about the whole issue of cultural context. I mean, can an AI ever truly understand the nuances of Tibetan culture? Or is there a risk that it might misinterpret or even distort those traditions?
That's a crucial point, and it highlights the need for ongoing dialogue and collaboration between TATANKA and Tibetan communities. It can't be a one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
They need to be constantly adapting and refining their AI systems to ensure they're truly serving the needs and values of the people they're designed to help.
Okay, so it sounds like this Skylamp initiative is more than just a school. It's a kind of testing ground for this whole idea of using AI to support Tibetan culture and development.
Exactly. And the article suggests that they want to replicate this model in other parts of Tibet, tailoring it to the specific needs of each community. It's about finding a balance between global expertise and local knowledge.
So they're not just bringing in outside tech. They're working with Tibetans to create something that feels truly authentic and relevant to their lives.
Right. And it's not just about technology. It's about empowering people. The articles talk about training Tibetan youth to become AI developers, designers, and entrepreneurs.
Wow.
They want to create a generation of tech-savvy Tibetans who can shape the future of their own culture.
That's a powerful vision. It's about giving people the tools to not just consume technology, but to create it. To use it to tell their own stories and to build the future they want to see.
And that brings us back to the idea of AI humanism. It's not about creating AI that's smarter than us. It's about creating AI that helps us become more compassionate, more connected, more fully human.
It's almost like they're saying, look, AI can be this incredible force for good, but only if we use it wisely, ethically, and in a way that aligns with our deepest values.
And those values, those are something that Tibet has been exploring and refining for centuries. They have a lot to teach the world about how to live in harmony with ourselves, with each other, and with the planet.
Okay, so we've talked about the potential for AI to preserve culture, enhance education, and even support healthcare. But what about the bigger picture? The articles also mention things like global peace and environmental sustainability. Pretty ambitious goals.
They are, but the articles make a compelling case for how AI, guided by Tibetan Buddhist principles, could actually make a real difference in those areas.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me an example of how it could actually work.
Well, let's take conflict resolution, a topic we touched on earlier. Imagine AI systems that are trained not just on legal precedents and historical data, but also on Tibetan Buddhist teachings about compassion, understanding, and nonviolence.
So instead of just looking for loopholes or trying to win an argument, these AI systems will be designed to actually find common ground and promote reconciliation.
Exactly. They could be used to help mediate disputes, facilitate dialogue between conflicting parties, and even identify underlying causes of conflict that might not be immediately apparent.
That's a fascinating idea.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that be incredibly complex to program? I mean, how do you teach an AI to understand something as nuanced as compassion?
It's definitely a challenge, but not an insurmountable one. The articles talk about using machine learning to train AI systems on a massive data set of Tibetan Buddhist texts, teachings, and even real-world examples of conflict resolution, guided by those principles.
So it's about teaching the AI to recognize patterns, to identify the underlying principles at play, and then to apply those principles to new situations.
Exactly. And it wouldn't just be about crunching data. The articles also emphasize the importance of human oversight and collaboration. These AI systems would be tools to assist human mediators and peacemakers, not to replace them.
Okay, so that's conflict resolution. What about environmental sustainability? How could AI, informed by Tibetan Buddhist principles, help us tackle a problem as massive and complex as climate change?
Well, one area they're focusing on is resource management. Tibetan Buddhism has a long tradition of living in harmony with nature, of recognizing the interconnectedness of all things. They see the environment not as something to be exploited, but as something to be respected and protected.
So how do they translate that philosophy into AI?
They're talking about using AI to develop systems that optimize resource allocation, minimize waste, and promote sustainable practices in everything from agriculture to energy production. Imagine AI systems that can monitor water usage, predict crop yields, and even design buildings that are perfectly adapted to the local climate.
It's like creating an AI that understands the delicate balance of an ecosystem and helps us live within those limits.
Right. And it's not just about technology. It's about changing our mindset. The articles argue that by incorporating Tibetan Buddhist principles into AI, we can start to shift our relationship with the environment, moving away from a mindset of exploitation and towards a mindset of stewardship.
It's a pretty radical idea, but also a really hopeful one. It's like they're saying, look, we don't have to choose between technology and the environment.
Right.
We can use technology to help us heal the planet and create a more sustainable future.
And that brings us back to the core message of this partnership. It's about using AI as a tool for good, guided by wisdom, compassion, and a deep understanding of interconnectedness.
It's a powerful vision. But as we discussed earlier, there are also potential downsides and challenges to consider. We need to be aware of those as well.
Absolutely.
If we want to have an honest conversation about this partnership.
You're absolutely right. It's important to look at both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears and dive into some of those potential pitfalls.
Okay.
What are some of the red flags we should be watching out for?
Okay, so we've explored the potential upsides of this TATANKA-Tibet partnership, but now it's time to get real about the potential downsides.
Right.
I think the biggest one for me is the whole issue of cultural appropriation. How do we ensure that this collaboration truly benefits Tibetan communities and doesn't just become another way for outsiders to exploit their culture for profit or gain?
It's a valid concern and one that the articles themselves acknowledge. They stress the importance of approaching this partnership with humility and respect.
Right.
Recognizing that Tibet has its own rich history of knowledge and innovation.
Yeah.
It's not about imposing a Western tech agenda.
Right.
It's about working collaboratively with Tibetan communities, identify their needs, and co-create solutions that align with their values.
So it's about making sure Tibetans have a seat at the table.
Exactly.
Not just as beneficiaries, but as active participants in shaping how AI is developed and used in their communities.
Exactly. The articles talk about the need for capacity building training Tibetan youth in AI development, data science, and entrepreneurship. It's about empowering Tibetans to become leaders in this field, not just consumers of technology created elsewhere.
That makes sense. It's about ensuring that the benefits of AI, both economic and social, are shared equitably.
Right.
But even with the best intentions, there's always the risk of unintended consequences, especially when we're talking about AI, which is still a relatively new and unpredictable technology.
Right, and one of the biggest concerns is the potential for misuse.
Yeah.
We've seen how AI can be used for surveillance, for social control, even for spreading misinformation.
Right.
How do we ensure that those same tools aren't used to undermine Tibetan autonomy or suppress dissent?
It's a tough question.
It is.
And honestly, it makes me a bit uneasy knowing that this technology could be used for harm, even if that's not the intention.
I hear you, and it's not something we can just ignore.
Right.
The articles talk about the need for transparency and accountability in AI development.
Okay.
They propose creating ethical guidelines involving independent auditors.
Okay.
And ensuring that any AI systems used in Tibet are subject to strict human oversight.
So it's about building in safeguards from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And not just assuming that technology will automatically be used for good.
Exactly. And it's about ongoing dialogue.
Okay.
Engaging with Tibetan communities, human rights groups, and ethicists to identify potential risks and proactively address them.
Okay, so we've talked about cultural appropriation and misuse. What about the digital divide? We know that not everyone in Tibet, let alone the world, has access to technology.
Right.
How do we ensure that these AI initiatives don't just benefit a select few while further marginalizing those who are already disadvantaged?
That's a crucial point, and one that the articles address directly.
Yeah.
They talk about the need to invest in infrastructure, expanding internet access in rural areas, developing AI systems that can work on low bandwidth devices, and providing training to ensure that everyone has the skills to participate in the digital economy.
So it's not just about creating the technology, it's about creating an ecosystem where everyone has the opportunity to benefit from it.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that technology alone isn't enough.
Right.
We also need to address underlying social and economic inequalities that contribute to the digital divide.
Okay, so we've covered some pretty heavy topics here, but I want to end on a more hopeful note.
Yeah.
Because for all the potential risks, there's also this incredible sense of possibility. It feels like we're on the cusp of something truly transformative.
I agree.
It feels like this partnership is so compelling, is that it's not just about technical innovation.
Right.
It's about a deeper shift in our understanding of what AI can be and how it can be used to create a more just, compassionate, and sustainable world.
I think you're right.
It's like they're saying, look, we don't have all the answers, but we believe that technology can be a force for good, and that by combining ancient wisdom with modern innovation, we can create a future that's truly worthy of our highest aspirations.
And it's not just up to TATANKA and the Tibetan people to make this happen.
Right.
It's a challenge for all of us.
Yeah.
We all have a role to play in shaping the future of AI.
Right.
Demanding ethical development, promoting inclusivity, and ensuring that this technology is used to benefit all of humanity.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with this question. What kind of world do you want to build with AI? What are your hopes, your fears,
Right.
and what actions can you take to ensure that AI is used for good?
Because the future isn't something that just happens to us.
Right.
It's something we create together, and with the right combination of wisdom, compassion, and innovation, I believe we can create a future that's truly extraordinary.
Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey. We hope you found it insightful, thought-provoking, and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.